Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Crowder, and I'm with Unanet, and I'll be leading today's webinar, which we've entitled Control the Future, Budget, Plan, and Forecast. We're currently scheduled to run from 1 to 2 p.m. I'm planning to finish up. I'll try to finish around 1:45 to allow a little bit of time for questions, but we will have a hard stop, so planning to finish at 1:50, 1:55 at the latest. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to start by going through a few slides that provide a little bit of background on Unanet, the software, and the company, and then we'll slide right into a demonstration of Unanet's really budgeting and planning capabilities. So Unanet is a project accounting system that we built from the ground up. So all the capabilities are integrated. There's no modules, as other companies like to say. It's just one single database, one single security stack with a series of integrated capabilities and functionalities. So because we're a project accounting system, we look at everything through the lens of a project. From the front end of a project, where you're going to plan people, plan labor, plan ODCs into the future, you can plan your indirects so that you can see what your forecasted margin, revenue, cost margin all are into the future. You can also use it to manage your pipeline by assigning different win probabilities or P-wins into the future to see what the weighted revenue and the weighted utilization will be for those people. It's a resource scheduling, resource management tool, so you can see who's overbooked, who's underbooked, who needs work, that sort of thing. Once you have the plan in place, you can start to execute against that plan. This is sort of the most straightforward aspect of Unanet, where people are going to record time, they're going to record expenses against that plan. Because Unanet is a single database with all of these integrated capabilities, this is really one of the strengths of Unanet. The moment that an end user enters time into Unanet and they click save, either from their mobile phone, mobile device, or from their computer, continuing to the right on this screen, they can actually see a real-time budget to actual real-time project costs. So the time that's been entered and compare that to the plan. And those costs, and you can look at it based on the costs associated with that plan. So real-time project costing. In many other solutions, you can only look at that based on posted data, right? Time that has been saved, time that has been submitted. That time has then been approved by someone and then posted by someone in finance usually, so that it can then be invoiced and paid against, etc. In Unanet, it's an integrated system that allows you to look at all of that in real time and based on saved data rather than just posted data. There's a lot of different monitor, project management, reporting capabilities that we can support in Unanet. Each end user will configure their dashboard based on those things that they want to see, limited to only those things they can see. And so really the reporting and the usability is also a strength of Unanet. You can invoice from Unanet, whether that's a time and materials, a fixed price for a cost plus project. And then there's a lot of flexibility in configuring how the solution is going to recognize the revenue that's been earned relative to what's been invoiced. And then lastly, there's really a full suite of accounting capabilities. GL, AP, AR. What really makes a project accounting system stand out is that idea of aggregating like costs into a pool and then spreading those indirect costs across the organization and understand what your net margin is by project. So that's something pretty interesting and unusual in Unanet. Along the bottom, you'll see that we integrate with third-party payroll providers. Realistically, Unanet can integrate with anything that you'd like. Anything that can send or receive data can likely integrate with Unanet. But for probably 98% of our customers, we're going to integrate with a third-party HR payroll provider. And so we like to call that out as well. Today, even though this really summarizes Unanet's capabilities in one screen, today we're really going to focus on that first bar of planning and budgeting, right? So if you can see my mouse, this is where we're going to focus today's webinar. On to my next slide, we poll Unanet's customers. We try and do it really frequently. We just had our annual user conference. We call it our Champions Conference. We just got back from San Diego. It was in May, actually, so time flies. But we like to take advantage of that time with our customers to collect feedback, understand why did you select Unanet and why do you stick with Unanet. And these themes are really those that bubble up to the top. And so one, Unanet is that single source of truth A lot of our customers typically, plan their projects into the future or manage their projects in Excel, frankly. And this gets people out of Excel and allows people to aggregate all of their projects and allows them to see what all of that consolidated data looks like. Everything is current and in real time in Unanet, as I explained on the previous screen. So you make a change in one aspect of Unanet and that ripples through into the rest of Unanet, which also makes it a much more intuitive solution. We've had a consistent design and development team for many years. And so because we have that single design and development team, because we have that single user interface and single application, it makes it much more intuitive, much easier to use. Unanet is entirely web-based, so there's no clients to install or download on your mobile phone or on your computer. If you can access the internet, we like to say you can access Unanet. If you're opting to deploy Unanet in the cloud, it will be deployed on an Amazon Web Services cloud. For those so inclined and familiar with the term, it is a FedRAMP moderate cloud, and certainly we facilitate SOC 2 compliance as is explained on this screen. The last point, and I'm going to combine these last two items into a single statement, and especially since we're focusing on budgeting and planning today, we like to say you don't run your business by looking in the rear view mirror. You run your business by looking forward, looking through the windshield, right? And so the kind of quote that I like here, the best way to see the future is to invent it. Another way to think about this, the best way to execute on your plan is to have a plan, right? So build to that plan and then deliver on that plan. And certainly the combination of the planning capabilities combined with the fact that it is such an intuitive solution, we have found that that customers running Unanet realize lower G&A rates relative to their competitors that are running other accounting systems other than Unanet. Here's a sampling of some of our customers. We have over 1,000 customers, actually nearing 1,300 clients at this point. Really, it isn't important to Unanet how large you are. What is important is, are you project-based, right? And for most of our customers, people are the primary driver of the revenue and contributor of the cost. And so that is really what this slide is starting to communicate, that you can start running Unanet at a relatively small or emerging business spot, right? We have customers with as few as 10 employees, and we've seen them scale on Unanet to 300, 500 users, and it's nice to know that Unanet was able to contribute to that growth and to that success. This is a little bit of background on Unanet, the company. We were founded actually 30 years ago as an IT services, IT architecture company. 20 years ago, we pivoted and deployed our first web-based product, which was, we believe, the first web-based timesheet solution. And so that's really where we pivoted from IT services to being a software company. We're proud to say that on G2 Crowd, we are recognized as the highest rated, #1 rated project-based ERP. And this is a crowdsourced model. It's not something where in other cases where you give a benchmarking team, $100,000, $300,000 to put you in a specific part of the quadrant. This is purely based on crowd feedback, right? What are your reviews on those solutions? We're proud to be recognized as a best place to work for 2016, 2017, and 2018. I bring this up because certainly I believe, and Unanet believes, that happy employees are empowered to create happy customers. And so that's certainly what we believe and how we kind of live our professional lives. We have a great and national network of partners that help both in implementing our software, but also helping our customers to optimize their use, their operations, and their use of Unanet. We are 100% designed, built, and supported in the US. And this is almost unheard of in the software industry these days. Most of our competitors, their development teams reside in India or the Philippines and in Russia in some cases. And in Unanet, if you have a question, that phone is going to ring at our headquarters here in Dulles, Virginia. Maybe answered by someone sitting in Colorado based on the time of day. But all of our developers, all of our design team actually sit right here in our Dulles headquarters. And we're also proud that over the last 3 years, actually over the last 4 years now, we've experienced a 30% compounded annual growth rate. And so that certainly speaks to the adoption that our industry has had, the desire, frankly, for the alternative that Unanet offers. I like to say that there are kind of three general types of companies out there. There are revenue kind of based companies, those companies that at all costs just want to grow top line, grow revenue. How do we get more customers? How do we get more revenue? There's also kind of profit-based companies, and they're focused really on the bottom line rather than the top line. They're focused on the bottom line, and certainly they're interested in growing revenue, but they're also interested in cutting costs so that they can make more profit. In Unanet, I've found that it is the most customer-focused business with whom I've ever worked, and I say that because there are different decisions that Unanet makes, and frankly, customer-focused businesses make than you would otherwise. It's not a decision that is necessarily going to drive more revenue or a decision that is going to generate more profit for the company. Certainly, we believe in customer satisfaction and customer retention, and by focusing on the customer, we believe that is going to generate the greatest long-term success for both Unanet and also our customers. And this is best exemplified by this quote by Frank Craig, Unanet's founder: "Our clients are our jewels, and we shine them every day." And everybody in Unanet kind of buys into this, believes it, and executes on this vision every single day. So when you work with Unanet, we kind of organize the various Unanet offerings and teams into these four different sides of the wheel. So starting with our professional services team, these are the people that will work with you to both implement your Unanet initially, may be involved in upgrading your Unanet if you're using only some aspects of the capabilities and you want to deploy and configure some more of the Unanet capabilities. You might engage with our services team. This might also be part of leveraging Unanet's partner team, and so some of Unanet's great partners. We obviously have invested a lot in training and various service products to help with some of our smaller customers, emerging businesses, to enable them to more rapidly design and adopt a new system like Unanet. We've also developed some third-party products to better facilitate integration with payroll providers, and we have a cloud data warehouse that supports third-party BI tools, BI and analytics and dashboarding tools in creating custom reports to leverage the data that resides in Unanet. Once you're live and have transitioned out of kind of the implementation services team, as we talked about, each customer in Unanet will have an assigned customer success manager. We call them a CSM. So this CSM will be your primary POC, and they'll be kind of proactively responsible for reaching out to make sure you're aware of new capabilities and Unanet enhancements that come out. We try to target kind of 1 to 2 major releases a year, and then we might have minor releases, frankly, every few weeks. We like to call them tiny bubbles, but Unanet is constantly investing in the product and enhancing that solution so that our customers can be even more efficient. And certainly the customer success team is integral in making sure that our customers are aware of those new capabilities. There's also a reactive side, and so if a customer has a question, has an issue, they're going to call our customer support number here. And you'll see that 703 area code. That's just reinforcing the fact that we are headquartered in Virginia. That's a Virginia area code. Rings here in our headquarters, and you'll be supported there. You can also email Unanet, and obviously we'll support you. They'll be aware of your implementation and how your system's configured, and we'll address that. And then lastly, Unanet has also worked very hard to invest in different tools and in really enabling self-service for our customers. And so we've invested a lot in our help documentation. We publish our data model if you'd like to understand how things work behind the scene. We've invested in a knowledge center that is publicly available. So hopefully for those customers on the webinar today, they already know about this and have access. To those prospective customers, future customers, you can go to kc.unanet.com right now, and you can see what we have on our Knowledge Center. Our Knowledge Center is really where our customers, where our partners, where our employees, where our consultants have all posted tips and tricks and best practices in how to take best advantage of the capabilities in the Unanet software. We have a YouTube channel, so if you go to YouTube, you can search on Unanet, and you can see a host of different videos. Some are demos like I'm doing today, some are previous webinars, things that we do with the partners with whom we just mentioned earlier. there's a lot of neat content out on YouTube. We organize different regional cluster events all over the country. So when I say cluster, right, so we're headquartered in the DC region, DMV, for those here. We'll have events in that DMV region. We do events in Florida frequently, in Charleston, South Carolina, and San Diego, and in the Denver and Colorado Springs area, Huntsville area, sort of all over the country. I'm missing a bunch of lists, Boston in the Northeast. But certainly keep an eye out for events that are in that area. You'll get to see demos of Unanet. You'll get to network and interact with Unanet leadership. You'll also get to meet, more importantly, in my opinion, some Unanet customers and hear directly from them. We have that Champions Conference, as I just mentioned. Last year was in San Diego. This coming year, we'll be at the Ritz-Carlton in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. We have a LinkedIn user group, and then just a monthly newsletter. So those were my slides. I'm going to jump into the demo next. Before I do, I'm going to come back here for just 1 second. If there are things that you would like to see today, again, specifically around budgeting and planning and forecasting, because that's where we're going to focus today, which is primarily on this kind of silo of capabilities, by all means, please do enter something into the chat, and I will do my best to kind of keep one eye on that and one eye on the demo. But certainly we want to focus on those things that are most important to those people that are on today's call. And so if I can address those things, I will certainly try and do that. All right. So sorry about that, everyone. My son is going to the dentist. All right. So when a user authenticates into Unanet, they're presented with a dashboard. And that dashboard is going to be reflective of those things that they want to see and limited to only those things that they can see. And so I mentioned this earlier. So here is my dashboard. And so I'm currently logged in as an administrator that has full read and write access to everything in Unanet. But as I said, each end user Unanet is a role-based system. And so based on the end user's specific role and those things that we allow them to see, that may reflect what they can see, right? I can see all the projects for this customer, or I can only see this specific project. Maybe I can see everything in the finance team, but I'm not able to see people in the HR team. Whatever that is, you're going to configure your Unanet based on that. When I say dashboard, this is my home dashboard with one set of charts and one set of reports that I've saved to my dashboard. And I'll go in a little bit today on how we configure those dashboards for each end user. The other point that I want to make out, though, is that each end user really can configure the dashboard based on their preferences. And so because this is a demo system, we've kind of thrown the kitchen sink at it, right? Where there's a bunch, and I'll zoom out, there's a bunch of different charts that I've chosen to save, and a bunch of different shared reports that are here. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see. And so it can be very sophisticated, but it can also be as simple as you'd like. So the example of that, if I go to my organization's dashboard, I've yet to add a whole bunch of charts, and I just have a couple, saved reports and lists and that sort of thing here. So each end user is going to say, this is what I want to see, this is how I want to organize my data, and can manage that over time. And so just because this is what it looks like today, or when you went live with Unanet, it can change every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, however you'd like to adjust. That's how your dashboard is going to be managed. I also like to think of it from an analogy standpoint, right? This is what this is how I like to organize my Windows Explorer, right? For that's most people know about this. So different people choose to organize their folders and their files differently, and you can do the same thing in Unanet as it relates to your dashboards, the reports that you save, and the charts that you save. Okay, so with that in mind, we're going to focus on budgeting and planning. And I mentioned at the beginning that most of our customers are people-driven organizations, right? Where people are the primary driver of the revenue and contributor of the cost. And where I like to start is by taking all of those plans, and it's probably important to say, I'm going to show you a lot of the different reports, capabilities in Unanet, and that will explain how you're going to plan into the future. And I'm also going to spend some time that shows you kind of behind the scene those kind of infrastructure things that you're going to do that are going to drive the reports that we're going to see. So I'm going to do my best to straddle both, right? I'm going to start with the end in mind, start with those reports, and then show you what are some of the things that feed into those reports that create the data that you're going to see. So I'm going to start with some of the reports that I like best, and this is a resource allocation report. So what I've done here is I've planned a whole bunch of people into the future across a whole bunch of different projects. And now I'm able to look at those people and to see who's overbooked and who's underbooked, right? Who may have too much work. You'll see Chad here looks to be too busy for this week. I'm choosing to run this report week over week right now. But here you'll see Carla and Charlie kind of need some things, and Donna needs some things. The other thing to point out is this organization. So I'll describe this a little bit later, but really you're going to build the organization structure in your Unanet that is going to allow you to report a certain way and control access a certain way. And so we'll cover that in a second. So when I'm choosing to run this report, I can look based on the organization structure that I might have, the team, the department. I can search based on a specific labor category, right? So that could be a project manager, a business analyst, a programmer, whatever that is. I can search based on location, and there are different organizations are going to use different types of locations. So those may be office locations, those may be states, those may be zip codes, whatever those are. We can cover that later. You can also search for people based on a skill type. So the labor category could be linguist. The skill could be Spanish or Mandarin. The labor category could be programmer, and the skill could be Java. So let's say I'm looking for a Java programmer, and I'll come back and again, I'm going to show you how these things are set up and feed into this report later. I mentioned earlier that this is where we can select kind of the reporting period, right? The horizon that I'm planning to look at on the report. Right now for this report, I was running it week over week for 12 weeks. But let's say I'm looking for a Java programmer for 6 months. And so now let's change the reporting period to months and make it 6. I'll come back and explain this probability percent in a second, because not only can we plan active projects, things that we're actively delivering upon, we can also use Unanet to plan our pipeline, plan our opportunity projects. And so I'll come back and explain that in a second. And here's where you can configure those colors. What does it mean to my organization to be yellow, green, red? What's the sweet spot for planning people in our organization? So I'm running this report, looking for Java programmers for 6 months, and I'm leaving it for those 2 different teams right here, 3 teams technically. And you can see that given the criteria, Java programmer for 6 months, and what I've planned in my system right now, I can see that Charlie user is the only person that has the availability, and that's really Charlie's the person that I'm going to use for this opportunity. So a couple other points that I do want to raise, right? So we talked about how in Unanet you can set up different organizations. So if I'm organized within the process engineering team, I may only be able to see Chad user. And if I run this same report, and I'm looking for a Java developer, but all I'm allowed to see are people in the process engineering team, I'm not going to know that Charlie has that availability. So when we talk about the organizational structure and the organizational assignments, that's kind of the concept that I want to introduce right here. The other thing that I'd like to hit upon really quickly is this is the dashboard management, right? So because I logged in as an administrator, we have this concept of a saved shared criteria, saved shared criteria. And so if I'd like to, I can create a specific report, create kind of the lens through which my project managers, my different business units are going to manage their people, and then I can share that criteria out. It'll only be limited to only those people, those organizations, those projects that those people can see, but it makes for a very nice way of managing people that are managing other people, right? I can also save this specific report. So let's say, again, this was my Java developer report. I mentioned at the beginning that we have lots of different dashboards in Unanet. So let's say I would like to add my Java developers to, if I could type, very challenging. So this is the my Java developers kind of report that I like. I can add this to my home dashboard. I could add it to my people dashboard. I click save, and now let's just go to my people dashboard. And here you'll see this is my job developer report right here. So it's that easy to manage your dashboard and to save reports that you like. The last thing that I want to point out, I know I'm hanging out on this report a lot. There's a lot of other reports I'm going to show you, but there's also a lot of information that I can kind of cover and explain in a pretty efficient way by staying here. So the other thing that I'd like to show is this use probability percent right here. So we looked at this, and if you recall, Chad was 170% utilized before. If I enable this use probability percent feature in Unanet, I click run. Now I go in, and Chad is only 116% utilized. I click on Chad, because I would like to understand why, and here you'll see it, right? Okay, this StudyX project, it's an open project, it's an active project, 100% you can see it. But this 777 project, only a 50% chance that we're going to win that project. That PSA upgrade project, again, only 50%, et cetera. So we're calculating a weighted average, or we're weighting the degree to which we're going to win this project. And then the utilization is reflective of that win probability. So that's pretty cool. And the win probability can affect both the revenue that's projected out as well as the utilization, as well as the hours for that matter, depending on the report that you're using. Okay, so I covered a lot here. There's some other neat things, concepts that I'd like to introduce just right now as it relates to looking at some of these plans in Unanet. So here's a project forecast. I'm going to open a couple different reports. And so this is just a browser feature. So I'm opening a report or a screen using a different tab in the browser. And so this is a nice feature because it allows me to do different things kind of at the same time and to compare different tabs. For many of our customers now, they have multiple monitors, and so they might have different Unanet reports up at any one time. They might also have an entry screen on a planning screen open on one side, and I'll show you that in a second, and show how they'll interact with the report that they're seeing. So let's start at this. This is kind of the people version of the forecast. In this version of the report, I'm choosing to show hours. So I can see everything that Darla is planning to work on, everything that David's planning to work on, everything that Dustin is planning to work on. So this is my people forecast. But if I want to invert this table, right, think about this as a pivot table in Excel, because even though we replaced Excel, I still love Excel, right? So that pivot table in Excel, you can see it right here. Now I'm choosing to report by project, right? So here's everything for the 7011 project. Here's everything for the StudyX project, everything for the big data project. Moreover, you can see here that I'm choosing to report on billable charges, so hours times rate. And so that may be because that's what I want to see. It may be because that's what I'm limited to see. But really, I can go in and I can change these however I want. So if I don't care about showing the people and I only want to show the labor categories, I can do that. And I don't really want to see total charges. I actually want to see FTEs, because I really want to know by project, by labor category, how many people are going to be working on it. And so there's a lot of point and click in Unanet. So here you're going to see for this same project, I'm organizing the data that I've planned by labor category so that you can see how many FTEs by labor category we're going to see. So there's just a lot of flexibility in Unanet, and just like every report, right? You can save something back to your dashboard. The other thing that I do want to understand. So okay, now I understand that we can report based on people that have been planned, but how do we actually plan those people? So in Unanet, we obviously have the concept of users and human beings that are going to go into the future with a specific bill rate and cost rate, and I'll show where some of that information is entered. We also have the concept of a TBD, or a plug resource or a ghost resource. This is typically an average cost rate for people within this labor category or this labor band, and then it's going to be the bill rate that you expect to charge for this project, right? Usually aligned to a project labor category. And so I can plan for these TBD resources into the future. When I know who's going to be that project manager, I can swap them out and say, okay, Charlene is going to be that project manager. And here you can see that the plan gets swapped out or copied down from the project manager down here to Charlene. I can plan, even though in this example, we basically have a little bit more than one FTE, I am choosing to plan by FTE right here. And so I could plan 10 FTEs to one single bucket. So if you want to, let's say you want to staff 50 linguists onto this project because it's a big translation effort for you. It could be that simple as planning 50 linguists and then one at a time assigning them as you may win the work, staff up the work, that sort of thing. So it allows you to get all of that data into one place. And right now, it is important to note that I'm choosing to plan in FTEs. If I would prefer to plan in hours, I could do that. And so there's a lot of different flexibility there. I'm also choosing to plan for one project right there. If I would rather plan for multiple projects, I could do that. So here's that screen where I'm planning people to 2 projects. And similarly, I'm choosing to plan by FTE. So if I go back here, I'd rather plan people for many projects. And let's say I'd rather do it by hours rather than FTEs. Now you can see that here's everything that Darla is planning to work on. And holy moly, just for this single month, we're planning for Darla to work, 890 hours. That doesn't seem realistic. So, really, there may be some, I don't know, reconciliation of plans or realism that needs to be done in replanning this work. It is a demo system, so I do have some curious data in here, but I think you get the point. A lot of different flexibility so that different individuals and different organizations can plan their people to their projects how they'd like. In addition to planning people, you can also plan expenses or ODCs, other direct costs. And so here you can see what that expense planner looks like. So just as I could for labor, I can plan one project at a time, or I can plan multiple projects at a time. This is where I'm choosing to plan a bunch of different ODCs or expenses to a bunch of different projects from one screen. So I can go in, select the project on which I'd like to plan. I then select the expense type that I'd like to plan to. And so these are configured by our customers based on their specific preferences. And these expense types are important to think about. They do track to a specific account in your general ledger. And so they're important for how you'd like to organize the data that will be reported. Could impact how you're going to approve people entering expenses. Expenses can be limited by project. So maybe on this project, you can only charge mileage, and on this project, you may be able to charge everything. So you're going to create the different expense types based on your individual organization's preferences. And then you plan into the future. Right now on this screen, I'm choosing to plan over a 6-month planning horizon, but you can set that up however you'd like. In addition to planning labor and ODCs, you can actually also plan your indirect rates in Unanet. So you can set up however many different cost structures make sense. And so this may be a little bit of an advanced topic for some of you, but this is just a way of aggregating all of the indirect costs associated in your organization. So your G&A, your overhead, your fringe rates, et cetera, and spreading those costs across the different people and organizations so that by project, you can run a full cost and a full kind of P&L. And so that's really nice. And so I go in here, and in Unanet, you can enter budgets based on different GL accounts, and then use those GL budgets to calculate your forward indirect rates. So in Unanet, you'll enter your actuals. So we may have a target rate by our different cost structures that we've set up. You may have a provisional rate. You're also going to have an actual rate, right? And so when you're running different reports in Unanet, you can select, do I want to run it against the target rate, against the provisional, or against actual? And then certainly at the end of the year, you're going to true it up to make sure, because actual is all that's going to matter. And so you want to make sure that you're managing to what you believe the eventual cost rate will be. So there you go. You've planned your labors, you've planned your expenses, you planned your indirects, and now you can go in and based on all of those plans, let's let my internet catch up with my mouth here. You can run something like this that allows me, on this specific report, this is a configurable report, and it's aggregating a bunch of projects under a specific customer to see, okay, what are my direct labor costs going to be by month into the future? I can see what my ODC plans are by month, and here you can see what the total ODCs are. I can see what my indirect rates are by month, so that you can see really what is my projected, my forecasted total project cost. How does that compare to my forecasted revenue? So that now I have forecasted margin and margin percent. So really powerful. And you can do this by project. Now you can scroll to the right and see, okay, I'm planning to incur 7.2 million in labor costs. I'm currently, this is what I've actually incurred to date. This is what my actuals combined with my plan should equal this budget. And so I'm going to come back to this screen in a second to show you what this more about what this means, because it's not just forecasting, it's also how you manage the execution of that forecasted plan. We're not going to cover that in today's webinar, but suffice to say at this point, this is a great report because you can actually combine what you've actually done with what you're planning to do. So we're just focused on the plan right now, but this is a great report for getting actuals combined with plans so that you can understand how are we tracking to that plan. This is on a T&M project, you're going to want this to be 0. On a fixed price project, you want it to be as high as possible, right? I'd like to make $1 million more. On a cost plus project, if you have those, you want this to be as close to 0 as possible as well. You may choose to maintain some sort of management reserve, but obviously your project managers, project controllers, and your own organization is going to set the rules for you. In Unanet, you can also use, you can set different project statuses. So let's look at what I mean by that, and because you can manage, you can manage not just your open and active projects, but also your opportunity projects. So in Unanet, you can define whatever project statuses you like, and different people call them different things. But let's just say that this pipeline stage 1 is just sort of a qualifying stage. Stage 2 might be when we're working, we've decided that we're going to propose and we're working on that proposal. Pipeline stage 3, maybe we've submitted that proposal already, right? Each of these, you can define what the words are, what the stages are, and then at each stage, what is the likelihood that we're going to win it? So what's the win probability, what's the P-win, as many people refer to it, at those different pipeline stages. And then when you know that you've won that recompete project, it's just a matter of going in and changing the stage from pipeline stage 1 to open and active, and then allowing people to charge time, record time to that project. So that's pretty nice. And you can see here, what does this pipeline report look like? This is a very simplistic pipeline report, but it's organized by, and this is an ad hoc report. So again, this is a report that you're going to configure based on your preferences. We've planned our people into the future, or maybe we just have kind of fixed price placeholder projects that are storing numbers for us. So you can see what's the total value, and then what's the likelihood that we're going to win that, and so what's the weighted value, right? The win probability times that projected value, and you can see those numbers right here totaled. Another version of this report that I really like, because this is a very nice and simplistic maybe, but it's nice to have that integrated pipeline view, is this revenue forecast. So here you're going to see the revenue forecast month over month, right, with that weighted percentage. And so you can see that going into the future. You can see the win probabilities right here. And then all you have to do, if you go back to your criteria again, you can use the probability. So maybe I would like to see everything greater than 99, right? And so in theory, that should just be all of our 1 active projects. And so here are the active projects and what that revenue forecast is. But earlier you saw it with the weighted number, and so here we're only at we're at 5 million based on what we're actively working. So that's great. A lot of flexibility to manage that pipeline. The other thing that I guess I'd like to point out, and then we're going to get into some of the infrastructure things that can really drive up and show how these things all work together. It's one of my favorite reports in Unanet, but allows you to look at the P&L for a current year, for a current project. It allows you to look at the total revenue and how are we tracking against the funded value and the percent of funded value. So this is really, again, just a different view of combining the project forecast that you have with the delivery and execution of that project. And so I wanted to point this out, especially for our customers. Over the last 6 months, we added this capability of getting these funded value lines onto this report. So for our customers, I wanted them to know that this enhancement was deployed earlier in the year. All right, so next, let's go in and how do we set up Unanet so that some of these reports that I'm showing and data that I'm showing is getting, where's that coming from? So this is, I'm logged in as an admin, so not everybody can see everything, right? And so let's start by showing, actually I'm going to start by showing the organization dashboard, because I do think maybe that's best to show the reference screen here. So here's my organizational tree view, and this is the organization that you saw. And so this is important to understand, right? You're going to set up the organization structure that makes sense for your business. And this is important for 2 reasons. Number one, it can be used for reporting, right? Show me all of the people within the consulting services projects, or all of the customers, or all the projects being done in the consulting services projects, or the process engineering team. So number one is reporting. Number two is it can also influence different people's access, right? So when we're adding people to the system and configuring their access, we may allow them to only see things on the consulting services team, or may only be able to see things on the cyber team. And so this is an important thing to think about as you're implementing and updating your data in Unanet. Really, the organizations in Unanet is one of the strengths. So here you'll see what the organizational screen looks like. I point this out because in most systems, this organization code is going to drive the hierarchy. In Unanet, it's a logical parent-child relationship. And so you select what the parent organization is for each organization, and so you don't need to worry about a specific name, 10.5.453. You're going to build your organization structure. It makes it very easy to add new organizations, pardon me. It makes it very easy to adjust your organizations as you might merge in, acquire other businesses, or just decide that you want to reorganize and report differently in the future. So this is really a strength of the system, and should make it very easy for our customers to change and adapt based on new market capabilities. So you're going to set up the organizations that make sense for you. Some of the other things that you're going to set up. You're also going to create different business weeks for people, right? And this is going to create the capacity, define the capacity for different people. So for most of your employees, they may work Monday to Friday, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, but different people may have different business weeks, and you can define those right here. You can also, we talked about the idea of skills and skill levels and skill types. So skill types is where I'd like to start. You can decide what are the types of skills that you'd like to create in your Unanet. And then it's just a matter of defining those different skills and then associating those skills with the people in Unanet. Individuals can do that for themselves if they'd like to go in and define their own skills. You can also do this in a separate HR tool and interface it over. You can do this in Excel and just upload this data, because some of our customers find it easier to just manage it that way. So again, a lot of flexibility to get at this data. You're also, we talked about searching for people based on location. Here's where those locations are coming from, and how you can create as many different locations as you'd like in your Unanet, and then searching based on that. You can also set up different labor categories. So this is the master set of labor categories in Unanet. So you can see these different labor categories right here, and you can see the different effective dates and the bill and cost rates if they're relevant. But then at a specific project level, you're going to pick the PLC, the project labor category, that is relevant for that project. You may have customers with very specific rates and maybe even specific labor categories, and those would just be included in your master list and then associated at that project level. And it'll automatically escalate based on whatever the effective dates are that you've built in your system based on these labor categories. Unanet is really supporting matrix organizations for our customers, so the intersection of people and projects. So if I look at the person profile, let me just pull up here the different people that are in my system. Here is where I can go in and select the roles that are going to be used based on this specific person, and so this is helpful. Here's where we'll just define that organizational access, right? So if I'm a resource planner, right now this person has access to all the organizations, but it could be that I can only plan resources for the process engineering team, or maybe I can plan for everybody in the consulting services group. But you're really going to create that by person. This is what this specific person can see by organization, that sort of thing. You're also going to define what labor category this person is going to see and get associated with. So here's where we're associating the business week that we just showed, the location, the employee type. There can be different employee types defined in Unanet. So you can see different approval groups that will get in and cover it at a different in a different meeting. But this is where all that different information for the person can be defined. And it's also important to understand that all of this can be imported and exported. So if you'd like to again bring this information in via a scheduled API from your HR system, you can do that. If you want to dump information out into a CSV file and suck it in, you have to be an administrator to do this, but you can actually do that and make very easily mass updates to all of your people. Maybe it's that annual time when people get a raise and that sort of thing. So a lot of information to support you there. So that was the people side. Let's look at what a project profile would look like. So here is the project profile. And so in Unanet, you can have different tasks. You can copy tasks and change the priority, the critical path of those tasks. They can obviously be configured differently based on the project. Some projects may leverage tasks, some may not. You may choose to assign people using these different tasks, or you may not. But here's an example where on the brand strategy task, you see that Charlie, when he records time to that brand strategy task, he's recording time as a system engineer. That's the PLC for this project. And when he does that, he's going to be billing at 155.10. You can see his cost rate right here. So we're making a lot of money on Charlie. Good for us. And so all of that information comes through the assignment. You can also choose to assign Charlie and each of these individuals over a different kind of period of performance, or they're going to work on this task for different time periods. So Charlie can record time to the brand strategy task between January 1st of 18 and August 10th of 2020. But maybe he can only do it for the month of July, and then you can update it that way. But the flexibility in Unanet, I also want to point out that here you can see when Charlie records time to the code task, Charlie is recording time as a project manager and is going to be billing at 132.66. So on his timesheet, all he does is pick the code task, and these derivations will be made behind the scenes, right, based on the assignment. Whereas if he selects time to the brand strategy task, it's as a system engineer at 155.10. Here are those project labor categories that are associated with this content production project with the different effective dates and date ranges. Oftentimes the cost rate is going to be associated with the individual at the assignment level, but the bill rates will be at this labor category level. So if you look at the assignments again, there's a lot of flexibility to get in here so that you can go in. What do we want the bill rate to be? Do we want it to be driven based on the bill rate that we've assigned at the person level? Do we want it to be driven based on the labor category the bill rate for the labor category? Or do we want to manually override it right here? Same thing with the cost rate. Usually that comes from the person, but I can also override it right here. And so there's a lot of flexibility based on the tasks and how we plan people to look at different information. So there's a lot of other information that we could cover, but we're nearly 50 minutes in, and I want to make sure if you have any questions. I don't believe I've seen any questions, and so I will continue on for a few more minutes to show you some other things that can be set up. But I do want to encourage you, if you have questions, if you have things that you'd like to see, we want to take best advantage of our time together now. So by all means, submit those questions. The other thing we talked about in this admin setup screen, and because I am an administrator, I have access to all this, but here's where you can set up also those different project statuses. So the ones that you saw setting up those different pipeline stages, if you choose to say qualifying, qualified, captured, proposed, you know, one, right? Whatever you want them to be, you can configure that based on how you'd like. And then at the project level, I should have pointed this out when I had my projects up, sorry about that. Here's where you can track that win probability right here, that P-win. It could be derived based on the project status if you'd like. It can also be just manually entered based on that specific person. And if you're changing those amounts over time, right, from a contracts management perspective, here's where you can see how things are changed, right? If I'm changing dates, if I'm adding or reducing budgeted dollars, you can see all that via the audit trail right there. In Unanet, we also have user-defined fields, and so we have, I should know this, but 200 or so user-defined fields. And what's relevant here is at the person level and at the project level, you can set up different user-defined fields that can be leveraged. So at the person level, we have 20. At the project level, we have 20. All those different, the list on the previous screen, you can see that. So if there's data that Unanet has yet to track kind of out of the box, you can create a user-defined field to keep track of that information. And also to run reports against it. So I do think I have a question here. Let me see if I can. Can the bill rate for an individual be set by project? Absolutely, yes. So that was kind of where I was before. And so let's look right here. So the easiest way to see that is at the assignment level. And so I can choose to associate it with a specific labor category, but if I need to override that by project, by person, I can do that manually right here. So thanks for that question. So it can be either one. It can just be associated with a labor category for everyone charging time for that labor category, or it can be specific to a person on a project, or even specific to a person on a task on a project, if that makes sense. So thanks for that question, appreciate it. It's fun to know I'm not just speaking into the ether, so that's appreciated. The other thing that I can show, I mentioned the idea of tasks here. In Unanet, we also have the concept of a copy project feature. So want to make sure that our customers out there are aware of this. You can set up template projects in Unanet, and then you can copy a project. And maybe that project has a specific set of tasks that you like to use, a specific set of labor categories that you like to use, and then you don't need to worry about setting those up manually. You just copy that project and say, I'd like to bring the labor categories, I'd like to bring the people assignments, I'd like to bring the expense budgets, whatever the expense types, right? Because all the same types of expenses are used on this type of project. The pay codes, right? Maybe sometimes we have specific, this project is all regular time, or this project has different shift differentials with night shift and morning shift, that sort of thing. Here's the task structure that we want to bring. If we want to bring it all forward, we can do that. But here I click next, and so Unanet's going to require me to either supply a new project org or a new project code, because you obviously can't have the same project code for the same project organization. You'll need to provide some unique aspects. So, let's just say this will be the 2020 version of the content production project, and we click save. And then you can just go in and start planning your project. So this is a really nice feature that we want to make sure that our customers are leveraging when they're planning into the future. If they've already built a plan that they like, and they have the labor categories and the people and the organizations that are important, this facilitates a much more efficient manner for planning people into the future. So, all right, we have about 6 minutes before the hour, and I was hoping to be done at 1:55. So I'll give everyone a kind of final last minute, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, please do feel free to go out to unanet.com. So here is the Unanet website, unanet.com. A couple things I'm going to point out. For those that would like to see more demos, more videos, right at the top, you'll see this View Product Videos. And here we have a number of different videos recorded, demonstrations of Unanet's capabilities you can always reference here. Unfortunately, most of these demos were done over a year ago, and we're happy to say that we've enhanced Unanet a lot over that last year, and so the screens may look different. A lot of the capabilities are the same. It's just that the user interface looks a little bit more, looks a little bit nicer. It looks more modern. Looks cleaner, in my opinion. So same capabilities, but largely the same navigation that you'll see right here. But again, my name is Chris Crowder. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Please reach out to your Unanet Customer Success Manager. Thank you so much for joining us today, and please let me know if there's anything that Unanet can do to better meet on your expected outcomes. Thank you so much, everyone.